Hello and welcome. This is Alchemist X, and this is functionally part 2 to my previous video, because before we were uncertain about the future of the game, and now we are certain. End of service has been announced for March 31st, so officially the Alchemist code is closing. Goodbye, Global Alchemist code. It's definitely been a fun run. It's been an important part of my life since 2018. And while the announcement is not really surprising, given the downward trend that Gumi's been on for quite some time, it's still sad. It still sucks. I'm still pretty bummed out about it. But luckily, because it wasn't a surprise, that's allowed me to kind of prepare for the end. I do want to talk about a few things. Later on, as always, timestamps. I'm going to do one final banner overview and one final summoning session. See if we can break that terrible global bad luck streak once it no longer matters. But first and foremost, I want to talk about the state of the game from now until close, with one very important detail. And that important detail is that you could be eligible for a refund for paid gems. They've got an in-game post about it now, but you can't actually apply for it yet. That's not going to be available until once the game closes on the 31st. You will need your account number, so make sure you have it copied somewhere, screenshot it, etc. You will also need a PayPal account. So if you've got paid gems that you want to refund and you don't have a PayPal account, make sure that you get one of those too. Got like 50 days to prepare for that, so no worries there. Otherwise, bunch of reruns. You can buy shards of characters in the Louise shop for it's a special shop, but they're Louise shop prices. That's what I meant to say. Otherwise, not much else. Is there a practical reason to keep logging in and keep doing stuff, especially if it's costing you progress in other games? I'm going to say no, but I'm also going to say that practicality doesn't always matter. Sentimentality matters too, especially if you really like global units. Enjoy your time with them, because while I hope that Tagatame adapts it in some way, because, there's not going to be global anymore, I have no idea if they would be willing and able to do that. So I would definitely operate under the assumption that global stuff's going to be gone forever. So yeah, in general, I think it's a really sad story about how greed can ruin art. Because it's a tug of war, right, between like capital and creativity. Because generally speaking, like, unless you're like independently wealthy or something and you can like self-fund a project, you could make really cool art, but nobody's going to see it if you don't have the means to like distribute it, or in something that's incredibly expensive to produce, like a game, even produce it in the first place. But on the other end of the spectrum, if all you care about is turning that profit, then what you're producing is not going to have love in it. And I think that's what went wrong with Global and with Gumi. I think for a time, they actually did really care. They were trying to make something with it. There's a lot more marketing went into it. They had their like YouTube channel with like the Alchemist Code news. And, it was kind of cheesy, but it was cute though. I appreciated the effort. And then eventually they just stopped doing all that. They really just wanted to copy paste Japanese stuff and then just very, very occasionally throw a collab or some global exclusive stuff. But ultimately at the end of the day, what was global exclusive and what's Japan exclusive did not equal each other out in the slightest. Like that was stacked so heavily in favor of Japan that it's pretty sad, and it's easy to see why like Global is closing and Japan is celebrating its 7th anniversary. Now, I won't claim to have a great grasp on what the state of Japan is like, and like how long people might predict how long Tagatame will go on for, but it seems like it's doing pretty well. I mean, just based on arena numbers, like, because I can barely beat anyone in the arena now, just because I've only been playing the game for a few days. But like the number rankings are so much higher for characters that are really, really high levels of units of investment. Like if I was fighting the same ranking numbers in global, they'd be like starter units that are like level 1. So I think if nothing else, that's a good sign. But yeah, as far as what am I going to do next, because obviously there's not going to be more global, so covering global has been my channel in its entirety. I'm not really sure. I would like to keep covering Tagatame. It's going to be a different thing though, because I'm not a veteran player. I'm not an I mean, I might be an expert in the game's mechanics just at its core. Like I know what the things do overall, but there's characters whose kits I don't really know or understand. There's mechanics I'm not super familiar with. Luckily, the memory thing that you like pull for, like with the little buttons with the characters' faces on them, that mechanic is pretty intuitive. So I'm getting a grasp of that. But overall, it's more I'm just coming at it from such a different angle. But I wouldn't mind still showcasing like what's going on with my account. There is another thing that I'm curious about, and that is another game I'm really looking forward to playing once it's released, and that's Honkai Star Rail, made by the same people that make Genshin Impact. However, it's going to be pretty different than Genshin Impact insofar as how it functions, because it's more of like a just typical like turn-based JRPG. I don't really know what making content for that game would even look like yet, because I haven't really, played it yet, because I haven't done like any of the betas. So that's a 2BD kind of thing. But as far as Tagatame goes, I think I'm just going to experiment a little bit. Probably do like summoning videos a little bit, maybe just some showcasing some of the characters that I'm raising. Other than that, I'm just going to have to figure out what I want to do with this channel overall, now that it's not going to have that singular focus anymore. I would not mind mixing things up a little bit, adding some other content. And I am a day one Genshin player. I'm not super enthusiastic about making Genshin content just because so many other people do it, and there's not really anything that I feel like I could add, even if I wanted to. Like maybe if I was just kind of showcasing my experience for it, but I don't know, that doesn't interest me as much as like going into a game that's like brand new, like Star Rail will be, or like something where I've got a previously established attachment to it, like with Tagatame. So I don't know. We'll see. That'll be a topic that's going to come up again and again in the next couple of months. So yeah, that is all I've got to say. This is kind of fairly long preamble / kind of eulogy for the Alchemist code. But now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the final banners. And here we are at the banners, one final time. Let's go. This is going to be pretty quick because I could summarize it very, very fast in that selection banners with a 5% chance for units and mementos if you want to burn the rest of your gems. They are absolutely horrendous paid banners, so I'd stay away from them. If you've got paid gems, I honestly would just get the refund. Like it's just a waste. Even if the game wasn't closing, I'd say stay away from these. They're awful. Anytime you can input a paid currency and potentially output nothing, bad times. So yeah, if there's any units that have eluded you all this time or any mementos, you can take one final stretch, try to grab them. You can pick 6. The featured rate is 5%. Not the greatest, but definitely not the worst. Better than 2.5 for sure. And then for another day and some hours, the older global banners will also be around. They gave 5 discount tickets, so if you wanted to do one of the 9 steps, especially to just grab one final global memento, just to say you could, if you want to run out the last of the content that you haven't cleared yet with your favorite global unit fully kitted out, then you could do that. But otherwise, yeah, that's all I've got. Pretty simple banner overview. And with that out of the way, we'll do one final summoning session for the Alchemist Code Global. Okay, so we're going to start out with summoning for mementos. I just picked the 6 that have eluded me for a while. Especially Bashini's. Like that one has been around for some time, but I just never pulled it. Zaphyrus and Claybell, of course. Those are ones that I really, really wanted. I have to say, from not having their mementos, though, like I still got a lot of use out of them. Matia is another one that definitely anything that makes her better when she's already got such an excellent kit at its base. It was a really bad start. It's so much nicer, though, now that it doesn't matter. Seeing like just yet another yellow ring, it doesn't quite hit the same. It hits a little more hollow now. And then Lachesis. I honestly I don't even remember what Lachesis does, but usually since support units tend to get either buff or debuff or skill use +1 either way, that would be excellent. You know, if I was going to use it. I honestly don't think I'm going to even do any more combat in this game. When I'd rather just use the time to progress my Japanese account. Which, speaking of, I actually have 2 of the mementos on here already. Zephyrus came with him as part of the new player god banner. Yeah, it was a new player banner, not an anniversary banner. I was mistaken on that. But then there was also a ability to select a limited memento, so I chose Legacy Ouroboros. So I'm already off to a pretty good running start there. It's been pretty nice, just the combination of knowing a lot more about how the game works starting out, plus just higher numbers, has made speedrunning through a bunch of the content much easier. Well, that and like skipping a bunch of cutscenes because I've already seen chapter 1, and there's somewhere I might need to do it a little more slowly and take screen caps of all the text and translate it, but it's hard to focus on that when I'm just trying to clear as much content as I possibly can. And they've got the replay story function, so that's something that I'm not super worried about. So far, 3 steps, 1 memento. That's not so great. That's like a 1 out of 30. So that, which I guess for me is pretty typical. So I wonder if we'll get all 5 discount tickets in and just not see anything worthwhile. So in this case, like whether it matches 6% or not, it's like not terribly important. I mean, I guess technically none of it's important, but what would be important to me in this context is like, is a featured going to show up? Because like, honestly, does it really matter how many 5 stars you pull if you don't pull the ones that matter? Like that's like the free daily summon problem, right? Like you do one and you get like 4 or 5 stars, but they're all just old normal pool units. So were you lucky or not? Like, however, this was lucky. A little bit too late to matter, but it is kind of nice to see Clayball's memento show up. I really hope I can get both her and her regular memento plus swimsuit memento in Japan. I imagine that's going to be a long road though, especially since I'm going to be free to play in Japanese. And look at that, we got 2 featured in one blow. That is the best pull that I've had in quite some time. Getting not only getting 2 featured, but getting in a context where they weren't guaranteed. So yeah, technically the streak is broken. But let's go ahead and take a look at some summoning units. Okay, time for units. We are in the final stretch here. The last summonings that I'm gonna do for this game. Because either I'll stop when I get a featured unit, and then because none of this matters all that much, just aside from evaluating luck, or I'll run out of gems. Either way, not a huge deal. So off to a bad start, just like with the memento banner. So yeah, that's an easy skip. This one was harder to fill for me than the memento one. It was really easy to fill 6 I wanted here. Here was like a couple Schmeier and Ishai, and I guess Dark Roxanne. But other than that, it was a little harder. It was just kind of picking units I don't currently have. Well, at least we got a red a little easier than with the memento banner. I do think it's funny that that even in final clothing, you can't buy gems anymore. They don't really have anything to gain or really lose for that matter. And it still feels so half-hearted. You still gotta spend gems. They're not really giving anything away. Do they really have anything to lose by just saying hey, everyone can access everything, have fun for this short amount of time that the game's gonna be around? But because it's Gumi, of course the answer is no. Oh, look at that. We have a featured. Who is it going to be? Oh, look at that. It is Dark Roxanne. That is pretty great. That is a perfect end, I think. Most recent global unit, as global as in its final moments. I think that's a pretty funny way to end summoning for global. So just to be clear, this is not my final summoning on my channel. This is just in the context of global. You will definitely see me summon in JP, and my guess is there's going to be a lot of blue, yellow, and sadness So yeah, that's all I've got. So yeah, it's been a fun ride with Alchemist Code Global, but that ride is now over and now it's time for something new. So I will see you all next time.